The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power in the creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week for episode 500 of Break the Business. I am elated. I can't believe we have made it to this spectacular milestone. I mean, I remember many years ago, many hair follicles on my head ago, doing episode 1 of this particular program, and I cannot tell you how filled with gratitude I am for those of you who've joined me on this journey. Whenever you've started to join on this journey, it's been such a pleasure to share all of the discussions we've had, all of the moments we've had, all the laughs, all the tears, and everything in between. I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart how grateful I am to have you part of this Break the Business experience. And at some point during the show, I want to take a little bit of time, maybe in this first segment, and just tell you a little about what this show has meant to me and what your patronage of this program has meant to me and what it has done for me and my family and my professional and personal life, because it's been so much good and it's made me so darn happy to have all of what this has brought me. And we're going to reflect on some of that this week as we do episode 500, but we got plenty of great show stuff as well. Joining us in the second segment, I'm thrilled to be joined by our guest this week, Hans Schumann, the founder of Jazz Reach, a Brooklyn nonprofit dedicated to the promotion, performance, and teaching of jazz music. An amazing social entrepreneur. He's going to have a lot of great insight for us, a lot of great advice for you indie creators, and I think we're all going to just benefit from learning about his story. A very fitting guest for our 500th installment of Break the Business. And also in the first segment, we have a special surprise. I'm going to leave it at that, or I'll give you one more clue. Our special surprise is something that is going to make those of you who've been around since episode 1 of this program very, very happy. So that's coming up a little bit later in this segment, that special surprise for you episode 1 fans who've been there since the beginning. And then, of course, we have Hans Schumann in the second segment, and that's going to make us happy as well. This is going to be a fabulous program. And joining us on our episode 500 journey this week, a lovely human being, I think somebody who is a favorite amongst you Break the Business viewers and listeners. You love him. I love him. Joining us this week, our co-host, Zach Sloan. Hi, Zach. Happy episode 500.
Dude, this is wild.
We
500,
made it, brother.
And this is wild to me because I started off as a listener way back when, before I transitioned to co-host. This is a big deal, man. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. That means a lot coming from you. And when I say a special episode 1 surprise, you know what the episode 1 surprise is. And you were around for episode 1. You've been checking out the show, been involved with the show as a fan since then. So you know to be excited about what's coming up in just a bit.
Our guest, or our surprise, I blew half of it there, but this is a person who I've been a fan of ever since I first discovered them on the show, and have every now and then when you just need to smile, this is where you go to. So yeah. I'm stoked, man. This is fantastic.
That has been one of the blessings of this program. One of the unexpected blessings of this program is obviously our mission is primarily to educate, to entertain, to teach people about the industry, to keep people informed. But what I never expected, and has been delightful, is how many people have told me that they discovered an artist through this show. Somebody we had along on our journey, a guest at some point, I've had people tell me, hey, you had that guest on the show. I listened to their music and I am now a fan. And I never thought we would in any way be a discovery vehicle for people to find out about indie artists. But, happy to have helped some people in that way. That's so cool.
Well, in the modern, the algorithm is only so useful, right? And word of mouth, I think, means a lot. And to people who've been listening for a long time, you don't bring crap on the show. So if you're bringing somebody on, they get the BTB stamp of approval, it's going to be good.
That's very kind to think I have any kind of pull in that area. But to the extent that we've ever been able to help an artist, that's made me happy. And I have heard artists tell me that by being on this show, they were able to meet somebody else because that somebody saw them on this show and then they got some kind of connection out of it. When you become a guest on this show, you do sort of become a part of a bit of a fraternity. And I have had the pleasure of connecting people together who have been on the show at different times. Like an artist comes on the show 3 or 4 weeks later, a booking agent is my guest. And then the artist says, hey, you had that booking agent on the show. Can you connect me with them? And I'll go, absolutely. And then, that blessed marriage happens and, everybody is better off. So I love those kind of stories. And over 10 plus years of doing this show, we have a lot of them to talk about. But I want to talk a little bit more personally, Zach. When I reflect on episode 500, I want to talk a little bit about what 500 means to me and what doing this podcast week in and week out for over 10 years means to me. I don't often talk a lot about my own path in entertainment law. Like people know I'm an entertainment lawyer and I often talk a little bit about my work and things like that, but I don't delve too much into the personal in terms of how I got started in this field and what I do day to day to build my practice and get clients and things like that. But I want to let people find out a little bit about that right now because I think it will help articulate what this program means to me. I'm an entertainment lawyer, and the common trajectory for a lot of entertainment lawyers, the way that people get into this line of work, because I hear it from a lot of people who want to be entertainment lawyers, and they'll ask me, how do you get started? And I think the common path that you often see are people who come out of law school and they work at some law firm. Some law firm hires them. They get like the nice law firm salary. They get the law firm training and mentorship. And it's a lot of work. It's like 100 plus hours a week. They will grind you to death. As you know, Zach, from being a lawyer, like law firm life's a hard life, but it's how a lot of lawyers get started. And maybe at some point when you're in that law firm environment, you get to work with a senior attorney who does have an entertainment law book of business, who works with some artists as clients. You kind of apprentice under that lawyer. You build your brand in the industry. And then over time, you become an entertainment lawyer with your own clients and you build your career that way. That's the way most entertainment lawyers do it. It's not the way I did it. I did not have that opportunity. I graduated in 2012 from law school during, the most horrific recession in American history after, of course, the Great Depression. And I came out of law school with not a lot of job opportunities in the field. Like there was no law firms hiring and certainly no law firms that had a entertainment law focus. So I came out of law school with a desire to learn entertainment law, with a hunger to learn entertainment law, but I didn't have a lot of subject area knowledge when I got started. I didn't have any clients when I got started, and I did not have any contacts. And in an industry like this one, where it's all about who you know, when I came out of law school not knowing anybody, I was in a great deal of trouble. And so in many ways, Break the Business saved my professional life, because I started this show 2 or 3 years into practice before I was, really fully established as an entertainment lawyer. And through doing this show week in and week out, I became the entertainment lawyer I always wanted to be, because every week I got to interview guests, and those guests became my networking contacts. Some of those guests became my clients. This show gave me the opportunity to speak at conventions, to talk to colleges and guest lecture, give me writing opportunities. And I became a lot of what I've wanted to be professionally because of everything that this podcast was. It was my networking vehicle. It's how I learned about the industry. It's how I met the people that made my career move forward. It's how I've met a great many of my clients. And so when I say that I am grateful to the viewers and listeners, Zach, for giving me everything they've given me with this podcast, what I'm really thanking them for is giving me my professional life as I know it, which is also, ostensibly my personal life as I know it, because that same career has allowed me to support my family and to, have everything I have. And I would have none of this if not for this show and all of the people involved with it. And so when people ask me what 500 episodes means to me, it literally means everything. Everything I have is sourced from this program one way or another. So to all of you, I just want to say, mwah, thank you.
I mean, it's such a wild thing for me to think about because I actually graduated in 2012 as well from law school. And the way I never did an entertainment law, I had a very different trajectory. But I often wonder, like, how would I have broken into the industry being in Colorado, not in an entertainment hub like a Nashville or a New York or an LA?
Yeah.
And I think about you because people don't always think of Miami as like the entertainment law hub, although I think a fair amount goes on there. And it's very interesting for me to hear about how you were able to network using entertainment to find entertainment law clients. And I think of the number of hours I spent back when the show first started, like driving to New Mexico, just listening to a bunch of back episodes. Because I came in a little after you started. And so I went back to episode 1 and listened all the way up.
A completist.
It was so much fun. And like to hear how the energy of the show has changed, because when you started out, like you and Metal Dave were goofy and you were doing like Conan style bits and stuff. And it was amazing. And I miss Canna Dave every day. And you've gone now to where you have this sort of rotating co-host of things. When I go in and I listen to episodes, it's fun to hear all these different perspectives, plus the guests, plus the musical acts that you bring on to perform, plus like your own insight into entertainment law, which is more than I have because it was never my area of expertise. So it's been a lovely evolution that I've got to see in the show as well.
I mean, this show basically just has like most of my adult milestones have like run alongside this show. I started this show and I was unmarried and did not even have a fiance at the time. And so no kids, no house. Like I, straight out, like fresh out of law school, like still living in my parents' back house, classic millennial trying to pay off his student loans and everything. And, this show has followed me along the way. And when I think back of how different everything was back then. I mean, I remember when we started this show, Zach, like in my parents' like back house, like a little pool house. There was no live streaming. This is 2015. So like live streaming, unless you are our surprise guest in segment 1 here, what live streaming was a very difficult thing to do in terms of the amount of technology involved. And so we couldn't do it. And even just doing an interview over Skype, because that's how we did it back then, because we didn't even have Zoom yet. So we had to do them over Skype. It was such a nightmare. It required 2 computers and all this wiring. And like we had to turn off the air conditioner in that back house because it was too loud. And it was, so much equipment and it was just madness. And the fact that you can just do it all now with like one single piece of web-based computer software, things have changed so much technologically. And it's been wild. But before we bring in our surprise here, I want to just take a couple minutes and talk about what happens next, because it's something I've been giving a lot of thought about, Zach, is when we get to episode 501, I'm asking myself, or I find myself asking, what else do we say? What more is there? Because what we've been talking about for the first 500 episodes of this show, I'm not sure we can just continue talking about the same things going forward, because the industry has changed. The ethos of this show for so long was how to be an independent artist, how to break free from big media such as record labels and do things your own way. That the book that I wrote, Break the Business, back in 2015, that was all about how to get away from record labels and be an independent artist and be your own boss and all that stuff. And here we are 10 plus years later, and largely this book that I wrote is now obsolete because the idea of breaking free from a record label and doing it independently is not rebellious anymore. In fact, it's easy to do, right? The technology now exists where it's easier than ever to be an independent artist in terms of the technology involved and the costs involved. And so if I'm still up here just giving the same message that we gave back in 2015, I think we're doing the audience a disservice. Instead, what I think we need to be talking about more going forward is, okay, you're independent now. It has happened. We have, in many ways, broken the big media model, right? You don't need labels anymore. But what has happened, which I think is an unexpected occurrence, but is kind of horrific, is we have traded the dangers of big media and the predatory record labels to the dangers of big tech and the predatory streaming services and the predatory AI platforms, right? We have broken off the shackles of the record label oligarchy or oligopolies, and now it is AI platforms are stealing artists' music, and all these tech platforms are siphoning most of the value of these platforms and not sharing any of them with artists. And so we're facing a reckoning now, because if I'm telling artists, oh, you got to go independent, independent's the way to be, how can we continue to recommend that unless we're also talking about, okay, now we have a new business to break? We were breaking the big media record label business. Now we need to break this big tech chokehold over independent artists, because if we don't break that business, then I think it's disingenuous for us to continue to advocate for artists to go independent, because it's not, this reality isn't great either. And, I'm not sure what we'd start talking about in episode 501 to address that.
Well, I'll tell you, it may seem insurmountable. Like as you're talking about this, I go, this is a tall order. But if you go back to the early 2000s, to the idea of getting away from the labels seemed impossible then. Mm-hmm. Like there was even a time when I was, running the Zach Sloan band, I remember somebody was like, well, you can't actually make money unless you have a label. And I was like, I assure you that's not the case. And, it was funny to be in the room with a bunch of other musicians who were like, I had a label deal and I still owe them money. And it's, it's changed so much to where my message of hope is that if it feels too much, what used to be too much is already come and gone. And so it is possible. I'm also very happy that I'm not the co-host on 501. So you can figure that one out, Ryan, because I don't know yet.
I have a couple initial thoughts on this. I think if we're going to break this new business in the same way that the old one has been somewhat broken, it requires big swings, and it requires not just nibbling at the edges of this problem and making small reforms, but it requires taking a baseball bat to the whole thing and making big changes. Changes that actually allow artists to participate in the value being generated by these companies. Spotify and Twitch, Amazon, platforms like Suno are becoming billion-dollar companies, the equity of which is not being shared with the very artists that are giving these platforms value, right? Art is now primarily giving equity and lining the pockets and wealth of people who are not creative people. And I think that is a broken model. So if we're talking about industry solutions, and if you're one of these people that says, I want to be a part of the solution, if your solution to fixing the industry does not involve artists owning equity in these tech companies and creating vehicles for artists to actually own equity in these tech companies where the art is creating the value in these companies and creating real legislative mandates for that, if what your solution doesn't involve legal mechanisms to mandate higher payouts on streaming platforms beyond what the free market is providing, then your solutions are not serious. Then you're nibbling around the edges. This is a big problem. This big tech's hold on music is a lot stronger of a hold than what big media's hold on music was 20 years ago. And if we're going to break it, it requires bigger solutions. It requires thinking outside the box, and it requires real aggressive policy and not just rearranging deck chairs.
Well, I think maybe that's the theme then, Ryan, because as soon as you said it's going to take big swings, I thought that makes sense as moving forward as maybe sort of the touchstone. If you're taking an action, you have to ask yourself, is this going to be part of that big swing? Because if not, does it even make sense? I'm curious to see your ideas on legislation moving forward, because you always have a better feel for that than I do. And I find I get more educated listening to you talk about legislation, especially legislation that's on the table, than if I, am searching for it in a vacuum. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the future on that as well.
It's definitely something we're going to explore. And ultimately, what guides everything I do and everything I hope we do around here is putting the artist first. It's the reason why I do entertainment law, is to put them first. They're my North Star. And I see, what if Daniel Naru writes in, oh, wait, can you put that back up again? What if we skip that part, turn streaming into a public service and pay artists a stipend like what Ireland is doing now? Yeah, we covered what Ireland is doing, where Ireland is saying we just need to start paying artists a universal basic income. I'm not opposed to that in principle. Yeah. I think that might be one of the solutions, right? It needs to be big swings. If what you're what you're advocating for is incremental reform, let's increase, how much, we allow mechanical licensing fees to be paid or something like that. That's not going to do it. You need like big aggressive swings that show that we're serious about protecting artists. Now, what guides me are the artists who I care about. And I want to highlight one artist in particular who has been inspiring me and my work and this program for over a decade. And that is the very first guest that we had on Break the Business, going all the way back to episode 1 in 2015. We interviewed a terrific independent artist and Twitch streamer from Australia. And in a lot of ways, she kind of inspired a great much of what we do around here, because when I was first starting out and I was writing my book and figuring out, okay, how can artists do this independently? Like, how can they promote themselves on their own, distribute on their own? I came across the Twitch stream and YouTube videos of Mary Amber, a amazing performer from Australia. And I was like, man, she's so good at promoting herself. Her Twitch following is incredible. The way that she relates to her fan base, the way that she allows them to participate in the process. She's having streaming sessions where she's letting her fans like help her write songs in real time. Like, such amazing fan engagement, fan buy-in. And a lot of what she did is like stuff that I put in my book, and I, got to talk to her and interview her. And I was like, I want to see what everybody is doing. Like, if Mary Amber's doing this, I want to see what everybody is doing. And that just kind of expanded from there. And here we are over 10 years later. And I've had the pleasure of staying connected with Mary ever since, following her as her star has continued to rise, as her and her husband Patrick have had a wonderful new baby that 18 months old. And I can't tell you how happy I am that for here on episode 500, we are joined by that very first guest as our special surprise, Mary Amber. Hi, Mary. How are you?
Hey, thank you so very much for having me on, and congratulations on 500 episodes. Holy dang. That's a lot of episodes.
Indeed. Yes. And I'm not exaggerating, Mary, when I say that, you're one of the reasons why we're here, why we made it to all the way to 500, because what you do as a creator continues to inspire. I encourage our viewers and listeners, check out her Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Mary Amber, and just see what she's got going on. You'll be blown away by the professionalism of it, but also that like it's fun and she doesn't take herself too seriously, and her fans are a delight. I mean, they are such wonderful contributors to the overall vibe of what she does. And there's so much that Mary does well, and you can learn a lot from her example. And, just happy to have you here. And I do want to make sure that I just take a chance to thank you personally for just being a part of this and continuing to support us and giving us the chance to support you.
It's my honor. Thank you for having me. Are you kidding? Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
To celebrate you, Mary, and just have you help celebrate this program, you have graciously offered to perform a song for us off your newest EP, Mental Health EP. You're going to play a song live right here on this broadcast. Yes.
Indeed. I'm going to mislead the masses. Most of my songs are musical comedy or crazy stuff. This one's a little more, I suppose. I don't know what's the word for it. Not musical comedy.
Well, I mean, I get the vibe from Mental Health EP as the EP title that, these probably aren't a laugh riot, but I am curious before you start to play, what inspired you to want to make mental health the subject matter of this EP?
Well, obviously mental health is a very, very big, important topic. I think many people you speak to say the last half a decade or so has been quite rough on them. And this is unsurprising. I think it's a pretty universal thing. The world has been rather chaotic. And I think a lot of people have gone through a rather large amount of this chaos. And it's unsurprising that it's hit most people. The mental health EP that I wrote kind of addresses, I suppose, some things that are a little more unique in the sense that there's different angles there. It's looking at, I suppose, different things to what perhaps might be looked at in terms of mental health. For example, Little Demons is talking about trying to look after someone who's going through something like depression. So you're talking about the person who wants to help. Then Cut the Kryptonite Out is about cutting toxic people out of your life that are causing you issues. So it's kind of like a bit of a different angle and some topics that may not be covered as frequently in song form, I suppose.
Important messages for us to hear, both whether you're an artist or just anybody. And I believe the song that you have ready for us tonight is the song Superheroes Still Save Me off of your EP. Without further ado, Mary, please take it away. The floor is yours.
We'll turn on some reverb. Feels like I'm rolling loaded dice, another dream in the gutter, and I'm not even surprised. No RPG is lamer than this real life. If I had a reset button, I'd smash it right down. I'll hold the fort and I'll make my bed and I'll make oats, cause that's the only healthy food I have. And I'll hit refresh, hoping to see a change, head lying on the table, cause I'm really just burning days. Plug my headphones in, turn my phone off, lock myself into a tiny little corner. I'll let my fake friends fight their Facebook wars, cause I'm busy right now with my whole world burning up. And let me shoot through space, let me save the day, turn my superpowers on, cry the tears that I hide that burn my face when I look in the mirror and I hate what I've become. And show me nothing's impossible and there's no one I can't be, cause when I'm falling apart and I need to believe, oh, superheroes might be made up, they still save me. News bulletin, everyone's doing great. Another prize or another paper to their name. I'm moving through the motions like it's auto play. Oh, my mind's busy dreaming of escape. I'll mess the desk up, the one I cleaned when I was in a better place. I'll say I'll fix it later, lying on my bed staring at the chip on the ceiling. Cause I really need a break from all that doing nothing. Plug my headphones in, turn my phone off, lock myself into that tiny little corner. I'll let the spam clutter up my inbox, cause I'm busy right now with my whole world burning up. And let me shoot through space, let me save the day, turn my superpowers on, cry the tears that I hide, burn my face when I look in the mirror and I hate what I've become. And show me nothing's impossible and there's no one I can't be, cause when I'm falling apart and I need to believe, oh, superheroes might be made up, they still save me. Walking down the street, head down, so I don't have to make eye contact with anyone. Shut up, my mind is spinning like a firestorm. Sitting on a train and yet I'm fighting like an Amazon. The war is in my head like a full spread graphic. My eyes are seeing everything, but I'm not processing anything. Cause I finally feel like I can take this, I can take this, I can take this, I can take this. And let me shoot through space, let me save the day. Turn those superpowers on, cry the tears that I hide from my face. When I look in the mirror and I hate what I've become. And show me nothing's impossible, and there's no one I can't be. Cause when I'm falling apart and I need to believe, oh, superheroes might be made up, they still save me. Superheroes might be made up, they still save me.
Health EP, that was Superheroes Still Save Me by Mary Amber here on Break the Business. Mary, that was exquisite. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much again for having me on for such a landmark milestone episode, for the first episode as well. And yeah, what an amazing story of this show, of what you've built, of how many people you have helped with both the podcast and the book. Yep. Thank you for having me be any part of that journey at all. That is a huge honor. Huge honor.
Kind of wish we had you on for episodes 2 through 499. You would have, we would have loved to have been serenaded every step of the way. But you have been on for a few episodes, and we've enjoyed every time that you've joined us. Mary, thank you so much. Please don't be a stranger, okay? We want you to continue your relationship with this program, because every time you hear, it's just a ray of sunshine.
Thank you so much, and absolutely love to. Whenever you want me on, if I can make it, I'll try and make it. Again, huge honor, and you guys are doing such a wonderful job and a huge service to artists. So
Bless you. All the best to your wonderful family, and sending our love to Australia. God, Zach, isn't it sometimes what we get to do around here is just pretty fabulous. The people we've met along the way, and the positive impact that we get to help them have, it gives me an ear-to-ear smile, my man.
I love when we have artists on like that, where we do the segment where they just play the song. I can just sit back and actually just like enjoy the craft for a minute, because that's ultimately what we're getting back to, is the craft. And even like Mary, who has like this sort of pop sensibility with humor, she still writes like really poignant songs. Like the idea of superheroes might be made up, but they still save me. Like, I think a lot of people relate to that. And so, Mary, you brought a tear to my eye. Thank you so much.
Maybe that's something we have to make sure that we do going forward, starting in episode 501, is to have more performances on the show. Because I'm with you. Sometimes we get so caught up with just the business and the news and the stories that we need to be reminded of why we're doing this. And I totally agree that when we get a performance like that, that's so good, you just go, oh my God, I forgot how much I just enjoy the craft of this and how ridiculously talented and dedicated these people are to what they do. And we need those performances. So that's something I'm going to make sure we do more musical performances during the show to make us all never forget why we do this in the first place.
Seconded. Love it.
Yeah. And before we go to break, can we just say hi to producer Lauren real quick? Because when I think about people who have been instrumental in getting us to this point, producer Lauren, you are absolutely one of those people, a extraordinarily critical component to this. What does episode 500 mean to you, as you have been part of so much of this journey?
Seems like an anxiety attack right now, because I have 4 screens and 2 computers open because I froze at the opening of the show, because that's how life is going. So that's my current. I'm like sitting here with things piled up going, no, I'll keep it going. But I like, if you want to loop into the world, like I literally have it sitting on a thing on a thing on a thing. So.
The inception of Break the
Celebrating 500 episodes of technical difficulties. With
Yeah,
producer Lauren.
that's what we're doing. Oh, let's not make a montage of that, like all the tech issues through the
Yeah.
years. Like I don't want that montage.
I'm reminded of the Dolly Parton quote where she said, "It costs a lot of money to look this cheap."
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
Similar, right? It takes a lot of skill and hard work to make this look as easy as it does on this program, where this all looks really smooth, and the guests just come in and out, no problem, and the musical cues come in and out, and no problem, and everything runs fine. And we do this as a live broadcast every week. We're not pre-recording this, and everybody just assumes it happens, and it doesn't just happen. It's producer Lauren doing this stuff with very little thank you. And I want to make sure that people properly credit you for how instrumental you are in keeping all of this on the track, even as this train is speeding and careening and trying to get derailed at every moment.
I didn't walk out, right? I didn't be like, you know what? It's frozen. Throw your computer across the room. Ryan, Zach, you're on your own.
No one would have blamed you. God, if people knew how close this episode 500 came to completely falling apart before the first second of broadcast, it would be hilarious. But we are very much making it happen, and this has been a wonderful show, and it's only getting better, folks. Let's take a quick break, producer Lauren. We're going to come back with Hans Schumann in the second segment. It's going to be a blast. Thank you all for checking out Break the Business. Stick around. We'll be right back. Break the Business is presented in cooperation with Ryan A. Kairalla, PA. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA is a law firm providing transactional entertainment legal services, including contracts, business formation, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida. rkpalaw.com.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. My goodness, did the viewers like Mary Amber? I just saw a comment come over where somebody wrote, "I missed my bus for that, and it was worth it." I can only assume they are talking about Mary Amber's performance, because I don't think anybody has ever missed their bus for a Ryan Kairalla podcast monologue. Boy, that was a treat. Ryan Kairalla here with Zach Sloan. Zach, you're having a blast, man. I know I am.
Dude, this is fantastic. I love the vibe. I love Mary. I love having Lauren to come talk about just the nuts and bolts. And by the way, I want to say every time there's a tech issue, I just thank my stars. It wasn't my fault this time, because usually it's my fault.
So often it is Lauren cleaning up your or I or one of the other co-host messes, and doing it without ever calling us out or making fun of us, because she is a consummate professional. It really has been kind of my secret superpower in keeping this podcast afloat, is because this isn't my area of expertise. I'm just a law guy, but I just happen to have as a sister the most talented professional person in the entertainment business, either in front of or behind the camera. And she just happens to be my sister, and just happens to helping me out with this podcast because she's really cool and wonderful. Oh yeah. Ha ha ha. I'm oh yeah. I see you crying back there, producer Lauren. I mean every word of it. But, we're surrounded by wonderful people, Zach. I don't know what to tell you, including our guest this week. Let's go ahead and bring him on. He is the founder of Jazz Reach, a Brooklyn nonprofit dedicated to the promotion, performance, and teaching of jazz music. Jazz Reach's acclaimed multimedia education programs help bring jazz to young audiences, and the organization has served over 650,000 young people nationwide. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting jazzreach.org. We are happy to welcome Hans Schumann on To Break the Business. Hello, Hans.
Hey. Congratulations on your 500th episode.
Oh, thank you very much. Those words
I'm
mean
honored to be featured.
Oh, I'm honored to have you here, and and excited to share your story with the viewers and listeners. I'd like to start at how this amazing nonprofit began. From what I read, you started Jazz Reach out of a one-bedroom Brooklyn apartment in 1994. How many great ideas always start in a one-bedroom Brooklyn apartment at some point? And you started this company, this nonprofit, with proceeds from the reluctant sale of your grandmother's Steinway piano. My God. Tell us about those humble beginnings.
Sure. Well, first of all, I just want to make a minor correction. At the top of your intro, you mentioned that we'd served over 650,000. That's actually old information. That's years old. So I'm pleased to report that we've served over 1 million at this point. So there you go.
Love that.
Awesome.
Well, to be fair, it is over 650,000.
Right. That's true.
Just even more over. Well, good. I was so afraid that I got something far more terrible wrong.
No, everything else was accurate.
That's not the name of my organization, Ryan. No, just we underestimated just how amazing of an impact your organization's had. Okay, we'll take that. We'll cop to that.
Inaccurate materials. It's not your fault. Anyway.
All right. Well, let's talk about the beginning before you reached 1 million people.
Right. So going back to the beginning, I'm a musician. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston. And when I graduated, I, like many of my classmates and peers, just wanted to move on to New York City to sort of throw ourselves into the deep end of life in the jazz world. And so that's what I did. And so I just kind of bounced around and played a lot, and jam sessions, gigs, restaurants, bars, jazz clubs, whatever. And somewhere along the way, I was invited to present some programs for young audiences at a downtown Brooklyn high school. And I brought in a great remarkable pianist named Cyrus Chestnut, who's fairly well known, along with a bassist. And we went in and played for the students. And mind you, I was still in my very early 20s. I didn't have much experience playing for young audiences and didn't quite know what to expect. But all that to say that I was a bit disheartened and concerned by sort of their level of disengagement and sort of lack of interest in what we were offering to them. And this is an art form that I am very passionate about. I've dedicated my life to it. And so that sort of prompted some thoughts about, how can we, or what can we do to engage students on a deeper level, on a more substantive level? How can we sort of better inform them about the music and its history and its place in our nation's cultural heritage, and provide a really exceptional, engaging performance as well? So that was sort of the impetus that's sort of what kickstarted the idea of establishing a not-for-profit organization. And so shortly after that, I sort of started reading books about not-for-profit organizations and started asking questions of other people who I knew who were working in the not-for-profit sector, particularly in the arts, and just sort of started bouncing the idea around a little more seriously, until I just decided that it was something I was going to do and move forward on. And
all right, when did we lose the piano, though? That's what I'm hung up on.
Right. So, that's after that. So once I decided I was going to move on the idea to establish a not-for-profit, I needed some proceeds to do it. Sadly, that sort of aligned with my grandmother passing, and she'd left me her piano. She was a very accomplished musician, more so in the classical field, as was my grandfather. They both met at Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia back in the mid to late 30s. And Curtis doesn't have tuition. It's all merit-based. And as I understand it, every student at Curtis is gifted a Steinway grand piano. So that was her piano from Curtis, and it's subsequently the piano that she taught on for the duration of her career. She taught at Curtis Institute for over 55 years, and then also taught privately in her home. And that was the piano that she taught on in her home. And so when she passed away, she left me her piano. And so I was, as you said, I was reluctant to sell it. Obviously it had a lot of sentimental value, and it was a great instrument. So I said, okay, my aunt and uncle were going to pay for the move from Philadelphia to my apartment in Brooklyn. And I thought, okay, well, they have to get up this flight of stairs and make a turn on the stairs in order to get the piano into the apartment. If they can't get it in around the corner and they can't get it into the apartment, I'll interpret that as a sign that it was just meant to be, and I have to sell it. I've got no choice. So it didn't fit. So I ended up selling it, and with the proceeds went forward and was able to hire a lawyer to get our bylaws written and drafted and get our 501c3 status with the IRS. And then it was,
I mean, what an amazing story of sacrificing, this very prized, very sentimentally valuable possession in the service of what you knew was a really important vision. You foresaw being able to touch the life of so many young people, and you were willing to, make such a strong personal stake in order to do it. I mean, as a lawyer, I am heartbroken at the idea that the sacrifice had to be made for the payment of legal fees. Like that, that breaks my heart. Shame on us, Zach.
The necessary first steps.
But
I should say that the piano was sort of reborn and was sold to a husband and wife whose son, who was like 9 years old at the time, was demonstrating great seriousness in playing the piano. He had been studying for quite some time, and he was pretty much a prodigy. And so this was to be his first serious piano. And so they brought his piano tuner, his piano teacher. They came over. They got under the hood. They crawled underneath the piano. They did a full 360 and determined that it was a really great instrument and that it was worth the price I was asking for it. And so I did feel good about that the piano was now going to be, under the fingers of this brilliant young kid who's probably now about 35. And then also my grandmother was very supportive of music, of my interest in my pursuit of music. She paid for part of my tuition going to Berkeley. She bought me my first sort of professional grade drum set when I was a junior or sophomore in high school. And so I felt that I'd likely would have had her blessing. So
I have no question about
no
that.
regrets.
I think, and certainly we appreciate that sacrifice.
Yeah.
Let me talk to you about the main component of what you're using as an educational tool, which is jazz. Why jazz? I mean, other than the fact that it's obviously a product of your background, but what makes this genre of music in particular such a valuable educational tool? Because when I think of inspiring young people, I'm not immediately thinking of jazz as my genre of choice, but obviously the proof is in the pudding. What makes jazz so effective for what you're doing?
Well, I mean, the art form, if you look at the history of the art form and the number of geniuses and virtuosos and brilliant visionary artists that it's produced, I mean, how can you not be inspired by that? These are all artists, including, I mean, there've never been more brilliant artists in jazz than right now in our time. And we're all standing on the shoulders of these jazz greats. And so that's, I think the notion that jazz music at its very best represents the highest levels of creative human expression and artistic excellence is, very, very akin to watching, professional basketball or professional sports. I think that's why we're so drawn to sports, metaphorically, because when we watch athletes who are performing at their highest levels, it's inspiring, and you are put in touch with, and you are able to see what is possible, in the realm of human achievement. So that's one example.
So when you're taking these students, I assume you're working with people of various levels. Maybe
Well,
some-
let me clarify that our primary mission, the core mission, is really to introduce young audiences to the music. So we do supplement what we do with instructional opportunities for student musicians. But my primary concern when I started the organization was that young people had no access or exposure to the art form at all, and that they were missing out. And this was their cultural heritage, and they should take ownership of it and should certainly be permitted to have access to it. So we do that by, we have a touring repertoire. We have a resident ensemble that carries out all of our artistic programming. And so, but the way that we aim to reach young audiences is through a repertoire that we've created over the span of our history of distinct sort of live productions that merge. They're scripted programs, and they're subject-based or theme-based. And so all of our programs integrate live narration with live music and video projections above the band that help sort of tie all the information in. And so those elements are part of what I was envisioning, when I had that sort of discouraging experience in the Brooklyn High School, sort of like, what can we do? How can we really reach these students? Because I've seen or participated in arts education offerings or presentations that were very sort of cliche or typical, where you go into a school and you play for students and you get them counting on 2 and 4, and there's very little sort of contextualization or substantive information with regard to the history of the music you're playing, or why you're playing, or what's happening when a jazz ensemble is working together, and what does the bassist do, and what is the drummer doing, what's the relationship between each individual member, and so forth. So we wanted to just make sure that through these sort of live multimedia productions that we were able to sort of cram all that into these tight sort of 55 to 60 minute performances. So that's the primary core. Now, to your question, we do supplement that program. So a lot of what we do are multi-day residencies. Our partners around the country, so we're national in scope, and we primarily partner with performing arts presenters and concert halls who have a dedicated education team or an education person. And so they typically will present our work on their stage under the umbrella of their educational initiatives. So Ryan, I believe you're in Miami, is that right? So is that correct?
South Florida, yeah.
South Florida. So in 2 weeks, welcome to come. We're partnering with the Broward Center for the Arts in Fort Lauderdale.
I'm
And
in
so
Broward.
We'll be there. We'll be in your town, baby.
Heck
Come check
yeah.
us out. So we'll be there for 3 days doing an assortment of all these different programs. So that's just an example of the kinds of partnerships that we've cultivated over the course of our 30-year history. But we're going to these performing arts centers, in every kind of community possible, from the most sort of urban environments to the suburban environments to the more rural environments. We're doing like little restored theaters in, Hutchinson, Kansas, and the Broward Center. We're actually doing the Kravis Center next fall, I think, in West Palm Beach. We're all over the place.
You really
We're
are in
gonna
my
be-
neck of the woods.
What's that?
You really are going to be in my neck of the woods. That's
Yeah. And so
Well, and-
we're gonna be in Los Angeles for a week, in 2 weeks, and then anyway. So Zach, back to your question. I'm sorry. So we do go with those partners, those performing arts presenting partners will also schedule us in schools. So they'll in band rooms. So we'll work with generally high school jazz ensembles or middle school ensembles. And in some instances, when there's no jazz program, we'll just work with the concert band. And it just depends on the scenario. In some instances, we play for them, and then they play for us, or we don't play, and we just sort of coach them. We'll listen to them play, and we'll look at the scores and analyze what they're doing and try to get them to sound better within the scope of time we have available. And we also have like a 3-day sort of intensive where we work with a single high school jazz band over the course of 3 days. We provide repertoire, and we rehearse them really rigorously for the first 2 days, and then there's a sound check and a rehearsal, and then we perform alongside with them. And it's usually, in most cases, the first time they're ever performing with or rehearsing with high-level professional artists. And so they really step up. They actually they sort of transcend what they think they're able to do, just because we're sort of putting pressure on them to take it up to whatever the next level is for them.
Well, an interesting thing that I had sort of wondered while poking around on the website was, you mentioned the role of multimedia.
Right.
How has multimedia changed from the time you started to where you're at now?
Oh my God, it's hilarious. I mean, we literally used to travel with the with the slides, with the wheel, the carousel. Seriously,
Like somebody had to hold the clicker for
seriously,
like the next slide.
seriously, man,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
crazy.
Now
I mean,
we're
we
talking.
were, when we first started presenting, it was like when the first laptop came out. It was so yeah. I mean, that's it's,
Was it your job to say next slide?
No, there was little X's on the script, for whoever.
Ah,
was doing it.
see, of
But
course.
man,
Like,
but we used to. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, thank God for where we are now. But yeah, I mean, we've gone from like really wonky PowerPoint kind of stuff to it's been a trip. So yeah, but now we're able to obviously use a lot of movie files, and there's a lot of it's a little more interactive and hipper. It's a little hipper, not as hip as we'd like, but within the scope of our budget.
well, and as your work has become more digital and the world in general has become more digital, so also has education. I work a lot in the education field as well. The classroom is no longer just limited to four walls and a roof in a
Right.
particular schoolhouse.
Right.
And so how, if at all, has your organization tailored itself to the fact that schools are different now in terms of multimedia and digitalization?
Well, I mean, I think what makes what we're doing, I think what makes the performing arts unique, not just music, but this very fact that you're exchanging energy with an audience, so it's so what you're getting away from technology for a change, and so that's the beauty of it, is that we're communicating. We're not only is the band communicating with each other musically, but we're communicating with the audience, and there's an interaction that's taking place, and that's the beauty of live music. It's the beauty of the performing arts, is just like that there's this beautiful exchange of energy, and we all know that, like, when the vibe of the crowd is great, the band always plays better. And when the band plays better, the vibe of the crowd is even better. And everything is this sort of, hopefully, it's an elevation of one another. So I actually look, I perform in the resident ensemble. So I'm participating at my instrument for virtually everything we do. And it's a relief that I have two drumsticks in my hand and can't look at my phone, to be quite honest.
I love that answer more than what I thought your answer was going to be. Like the fact that your organization represents an opportunity for those of us in education to get away from our screens for a little while and get back to being in the same room with somebody and feeling the energy of a real live musical performance.
Yeah, it's very visceral. I think it's visceral. That's the beauty of it. And that's, I in most of the productions that we present are generally like field trip or bus-in programs, and so there's they're an opportunity for the students to really to get on a bus and get off campus, and I think maybe on some subconscious level, the reason we do it that way is because I was so fond of my field trip experiences when I was their age. I remember most of my field trip experiences more than I remember what I learned in any classroom ever, really. In terms of it providing this sort of visceral experience that was something new and something exciting, that transported me. It was transportative,
That I think we can all appreciate that. I think we've all had a similar feeling about what resonates with us more. Hans, I have a couple more minutes before we lose radio here, and I want to squeeze in two more questions if I can. The first one I think is one that's definitely something I want to get your insight on, which is there are probably a lot of viewers and listeners who are consuming this interview and are thinking that they might also love to use their creative talents to create something cool in the nonprofit space, to create some kind of arts-based nonprofit. When artists come to you and ask for advice in how to get started in your field or something like it, what do you tell them?
That you have to really, really, really have incredible conviction and tenacity and just almost like a stubborn belief in what it is you're trying to do. I certainly, I think the people we admire, the people we respect, the people who sort of function as our heroes per se, are our heroes because of the fact that they've never given up and that they represent sort of models of success. And so, fortunately, I had those examples to sort of guide me or to help sort of lift me. But no, it's been remarkably challenging, and it continues to be remarkably challenging. But I wouldn't change a thing. I heard you talking about the extent to which breaking the business has sort of brought you into environments that you never thought you would go into, whether they're speaking engagements or what have you, all these things and all opportunities and doors that have opened for you as a result of sort of choosing to move forward on an idea. And I can say the same thing with regard to my my journey with Jazz Reach. It's just I was on the flip side of wanting to reach students on a deeper, more substantive level was the fact that I was doing the math, at 24, 25 years old and realizing that I probably couldn't sustain myself just going from one $75 gig to another $75 gig plus a meal. It's just like, I was like, this is not going to be a really great lifestyle. But so it was also an opportunity to sort of create opportunity, and so subsequently, we've had the great fortune of partnering with, some of the most distinguished performing arts centers and concert halls all over the country, and subsequently had these opportunities to serve, upwards of 1 million students. And, it's given me the platform to exercise other creative skill sets. I write the scripts for our programs. I collaborate with the video projection designers. I collaborate with the musicians who do our arrangements and who write the music. And, I'm a band leader. So, I've learned a tremendous amount about what it means to tour, what it means to be an effective leader on the road. And how to because it's people management. You're dealing with personalities, particularly artists, who can be a little weird, a little eccentric at times, so yeah, that's what I tell people. Just I think it's cliche for a reason, but just to believe in your vision. And again, I wasn't doing this is not a lucrative undertaking, so I was not motivated by profit possibility. It's not called not-for-profit for a reason, or it is called not-for-profit for a reason, I should say. But I've sustained, for all intents and purposes, a fairly comfortable lifestyle, and outside of what I do on behalf of Jazz Reach, I'm able to enjoy food and traveling. Not maybe on the highest luxurious levels, but nonetheless, it's given me a platform to sustain myself and to sustain my vision and to sustain my artistic ambitions and creative skill sets and imagination and so forth. So I just, for those who ask, that's more or less in a nutshell what I'll tell them. Just, basically take the this will not fail approach, or I will not let this fail approach.
Well, let me tell you, sir, something that my co-host Zach Sloan and I definitely have in common is that our two professional passions in this world are education and the arts. And to have this 500th episode be a conversation with somebody who has devoted himself so wholeheartedly and so effectively to the furtherance of both of those goals as you have is such a pleasure, and we've really enjoyed speaking with you, sir. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting jazzreach.org. Our guest is Hans Schumann of Jazz Reach. Hans, thank you so much for joining us this week. It has been a treat.
Thank you both. A treat for me as well. Congratulations on the 500th episode.
Thank you, sir. Our thanks to Hans Schumann and Zach Sloan. Our thanks to producer Lauren and our musical guest Mary Amber. And boy, do I mean it when I say thank you, all of our viewers and listeners for being a part of the Break the Business journey for these past 500 episodes. Thank you so much for all of your love and support. We'll see you next week.